Babes, and welcome to my book nook. Today's video may or may not be sponsored by my tiny child, Lincoln Barton. Say hello. He's getting camera shy. Anyway, we're here today to talk about my March wrap-up where I read 11 books, and it was the best reading month I have had probably ever. I had not one, not two, not three, not even four, but I had 7 5-star reads. Like, what even is this life? It's like every book I picked up was fantastic. So I had 7 5-star reads, 1 4.5-star read, 2 4-star reads, and a 3.5-star read. So my lowest read was 3.5 stars, and you're going to be shocked at which one was the bottom of the totem pole. So we are going to get started by talking about all of my stats for March, and in general, I'm going to be having a quarterly wrap-up video come soon, so be excited for that as well. And then we'll dig into all of the books that I loved and hated in March. Also have to share my beautiful shirt that I absolutely love. It says Spring Fling a Wing on it because I'm doing Gabby and Olivia Reads a Latte's Spring Fling a Read-a-thon at the end of the month, which I'm super excited about. They basically let you read horror at any other time of the year. And so I'm going to be reading a bunch of books for that at the end of the month. So wearing this shirt too, celebrate it. But let's talk about books. Okay, so let's talk about my March updates. Okay, so I read in March 11 books, so pretty close to, it's not my biggest reading month yet, but pretty close. So here is our spread, and then pages read per month. It is the most books that I have read this year so far, and it was 3,620 pages, which means the total pages read this year so far is 10,252, so that's pretty cool. I've read 29 books this year so far. Anyway, hours listened for this month, I listened to 21.75 hours of audiobooks. I didn't DNF any books, so that's good. So we're going to skip all this. And I only listened to 2 on the audiobook and the physical book this month, and then the rest I read physically. As far as genre, this is like as a whole for the year, and so I'm just going to tell you actually my specific ones. So for this month, I read 1 horror, 1 general fiction novella, 2 romance, a graphic novel, 1 historical fiction, 1 fantasy, and 4 thrillers. So thriller was what I read the most, and my average book length was 350 to 400 pages, as seen right here. And then, like I said, I read 1 novella this month, and I read a graphic novel, and the rest were all regular novels. Then this is my star ratings for, like, all of them as well, so I'm just going to tell you what mine were. I had 7 5 stars, 1 4.5 star, 2 4 stars, and 1 3.5 star. And most of them were adult. And then, yeah, most of them were published in 2021. I'm catching up on a lot of my back reads for there. And then I also read 3 series, or was in the middle of 3 series this month, and 8 standalones. I read from 2 returning authors, so authors I'd read from prior, and 9 that were brand new to me. And then this is my favorite. This is the author wheel, and so I've read 2 by Fonda Lee, and the rest I haven't. But I read from Lucy Foley, Deanna Raybourn, Fonda Lee, Nita Prose, Frederick Bachman, Alice Oseman, Augustina Basterica, Allie Hazelwood, Emily Henry, Ashley Winstead, and Ashley Audrain. And so, yeah, so far I've read from 30 different authors this year, which is really, really awesome. But yeah, that's my data for March. So let's dive into what I actually read in March. Okay, so the 3.5-star book that I read that was the most disappointing read of the month, but it was still not that disappointing because it was a 3.5 star, is The Paris Apartment by Lucy Foley. Yeah, I know. Are you shocked? I'm a little shocked considering I loved The Guest List, and it is still one of my favorite thrillers ever. This did not slap quite as hard. So let's talk about why. And let's make sure my beautiful book covers are in the background. Okay, anyway, so the reason that I didn't absolutely love this, so first you should probably know what it's about really quickly. So it's about a girl named Jess who she's running away from something in her life, and she decides to go stay with her brother in Paris for a while. And when she gets there, he's not in his apartment. She can't find him. He's basically missing, and she needs to find out which of the several other neighbors or tenants in the apartment did it. So there's the socialite, the nice guy, the alcoholic, the girl on the verge, the concierge. Everyone's a neighbor, everyone's a suspect, and everyone knows something they're not telling. And so it has a couple of different perspectives of those different people, and Jess as well, trying to figure out what happened to her brother Ben. And I will say she's really great at like writing a story with a bunch of characters and different perspectives and all of that, and I still really loved that. But there was also too many sub-characters mentioned. That was one thing that got a little confusing as to like what was going on. But the main reason I just didn't like it is I feel like a lot didn't really happen for like so much of this book. and that the twists were just, there was one twist that was really good, but the rest were just kind of for me. And I don't know, I just feel like it kind of missed it lacked, I don't know, it was lackluster in like the experience. It wasn't like the guest list. Like the way everything tied together in that book was so seamless, and like every time you realized another thing that was connected, you were like, oh my gosh. But with this book, when something was like revealed, I was like, yeah, okay. Like, I didn't really love any of the characters. I think that was another thing too. And it was just kind of and then I thought the ending was kind of like, okay. Like, I feel like she just kind of was like, oh, I don't want to make this a sad ending, so I'm just going to make this, like, you know, okay. And, like, I don't know. It was not what I expected, okay? Okay. It wasn't terrible. I still would recommend it. I wouldn't read it again, but I enjoyed it while I read it. Like, I did fly through it super fast, and, I mean, I still like Lucy Foley. I'll still pick up everything else that she does. I still need to read The Hunting Party, but I've heard that's worse than, like, The Guest List, so I don't know. We'll see. But, yeah, that was my 3.5-star read. Then moving on to my 4-star reads, I had 2. The first one is Jade War by Fonda Lee, which I actually enjoyed this more than the next book, but I picked this one up first. So this is the sequel to Jade City, which is book 2 in the Greenbone Saga series by Fonda Lee. There are only 3. There's Jade City, Jade War, and Jade Legacy, which I am reading currently. And I'm not really going to give an explanation of book 2 because that'll give away stuff from book 1. But this follows Jade, which is something like basically, you know, it's like the diamond or, you know, emerald, like jade, that you can wear, the only Greenbone warriors can wear, but it enhances their strength. And like there's a whole like level of like you can be a Greenbone warrior or like a fist or like all of these different parts in like their dynasty. And this follows a specific family, the Call family. And in book 2, we're following a lot more of like the politics between like the borders of like Espana and Kakon and Janloon and like the neighboring cities, and the war that is like striking out between the 2 major clans, but you only follow one clan. And so this is very political, which is why I only got a 4-star, because I still loved it. Like, I loved the tension. I loved the character development. I loved getting to see like our characters just continue to grow on me, and I just love them so much. I just didn't love every part of it because there were parts where I was like, this is just really boring. And I know that this is important to set you up for book 3, where you're going to break and shatter my heart into a million pieces. But this is just whatever. So it was 4-star. You might also go, Rainy, this was in your February wrap up. And it was, because I said it was going to be a 4-star because I had like 200 pages left. And guess what? I didn't read those 200 pages until like the end of March. So this was a February and March wrap up on this book. So I actually finished it in March. Whoop, whoop. Then we had my other 4-star, which was A Curious Beginning by Deanna Raybourn. This is the first book out of like 7 in the Veronica Speedwell series. And I read this basically because Katie Coulson inspired me to read it. She was talking about it nonstop. She picked it up and read like the 7 books in like a week because she became obsessed with it. And then booked with Busy. Aaron convinced her to read it, who also Olivia convinced her to read it. So like a bunch of people have said to read this. Also, Riley has mentioned it before on her channel. And I think I was expecting, like, I knew this was going to be, I guess I was expecting it to be a cozy mystery with, like, romance in it. Which it kind of is. But it's very much more historical fiction based. Like, for example, our main character, I can't remember what she is. She does something to do with butterflies, but they kept saying, like, lepidodiatrist, or, like, some weird, crazy word. And I was like, what on earth does that mean? And it was just, like, it was written, I don't know. I guess the author's writing took me a minute to, like, dig in like love, which is why I gave it a 4-star, because I was just not vibing with this in the beginning, and I was honestly feeling like, oh my gosh, am I not gonna like this book like all of them did, and am I gonna be like saddened and disheartened and then just think everything is a lie because I don't like this book? I loved it by the end, but that's why I got a 4-star. Stoker and Veronica are like the cutest thing ever. I love the whole one bed trope. It was just adorable. Like they're just adorable. And I loved the mystery in this. It was pretty good. I wouldn't say I loved this book as much for the mystery as I just loved the detective duo pairing between Veronica and Stoker, which I probably didn't even explain what this was about. So it's about Veronica Speedwell, and her aunt dies, and somebody tries to abduct her. And so this German baron says, hey, I'm going to save you. You have to come with me. And my good friend Stoker is going to take care of you so that nobody hurts you. And then the German baron guy that like took her in to save her ends up getting killed. And so then Stoker and Veronica are like on the run trying to figure out who killed the Baron, who knew all these secrets about her past. And you find that out in this book, which was very, very intriguing. Honestly, I really loved it. I'm definitely going to move on to book 2. It was a very good read. But yeah, that's my thoughts on that. Let's move on to my 4.5 star, which was The Maid by Nita Prose. So I read this for Katie Colson's Smut Salon book club pick, and I'm super excited that I read this because I loved this book. I really did. I know it is considered like a mystery / like thriller, probably more cozy mystery. And I think the mystery just wasn't really that great. I didn't really care about it for the mystery aspect. What really sold this book to me was the characters. I really loved Molly, which Molly is very controversial because a lot of people don't like her because, okay, she's considered neurodivergent, which basically just means like she really struggles with social skills. She misreads the interpretations of others. Like she just says things in a way that like if you don't understand her, like, you might just be like, she's weird, like, you know, like a socially awkward person. But the reason people didn't really like her is because they said, like, they say in the, like, cover that she's neurodivergent, but they don't really explain that in the book, and, like, they never really, like, bring it up, and so people are like, well, they should have brought it up in the book. I don't think they needed to. Like, it was pretty clear to communicate how socially awkward she was. But I loved her character. I loved the bellhop character. I loved the cleaning staff, like Juan Manuel has my heart. It's just like every character was like so great and their character development was fabulous. It was just the mystery that was a little lackluster. Which, if you're wondering, basically her gran died a couple of months prior, and her gran was always the one to like basically teach her how to not be socially awkward. And so she's learning to adapt without her gran, and she walks into like her best paid, like the hotel room of the people that tip her the best, and this really, really big socialite guy named Mr. Black is found murdered in his bedroom, or dead in his bedroom, and she reports on it. And then because she's so socially awkward, she ends up like, the police end up believing that she did it, and so she's having to like figure out how to convince them that she didn't do it with like the help of like the rest of the hotel staff. And like I said, the mystery was very lackluster, but I loved this. Molly is like a tried and true character. I love her. She gets put through some really tough crap, and I really felt for her. But I loved her. I loved the hotel staff. The characters really saved this book. So if you would rather want a very well character developed book instead of like the actual plot, because like the mystery is just like, it is what it is. Probably honestly like a 2 or a 3 star. Then read The Maid, because it was great. Now we're moving on to 5 stars, baby. And in this one, we read And Every Morning the Way Home Gets Longer and Longer by Frederick Bachman. I'm trying to start reading all of Frederick Bachman's novels, and I just happened to start here. And this one is obviously a novella. It's only like 70-ish pages. And it is about a boy whose grandfather has Alzheimer's. And it just says that they're sitting on a bench in a square that keeps getting smaller every day. As they wait together, they tell jokes and discuss their shared love of mathematics. Grandpa recalls what it was like to fall in love with his wife and what it was like to lose her. He dreads the day when he won't remember her. This peculiar space that's growing dimmer and more confusing all the time is where they'll learn to say goodbye. The scent of hyacinths in the air with nothing to fear. This hit very close and hard to home because my grandfather has Alzheimer's. And he's had Alzheimer's for, I think, close to 10 years now. He's actually doing really well because he's been doing all of these clinical trials and things. And so, like, he remembers a lot more than you would think he would 10 years down the line. Like, most people, I don't think, even survive up to 10 years of having Alzheimer's. So I feel very blessed in that regard. But it was really hard to read this book because it was quite sad. Like, he's forgetting things, like, as the book is going. And it was just beautiful. I loved this book. If you're in for a good cry, although I didn't cry, I don't cry to books. I don't understand what's wrong with me. But everyone else that I know that has read this book has said they've cried. So if you're in for a good cry, or you just want a book that you can read really quickly, you should read this. Plus, it has cute little pictures all throughout the book. Like, here's a little compass, and then let's see, here's a balloon. Like, just cute little, like, fill me in pictures. So next book we have is a very controversial book. I almost DNF'd it in like the first 10 or 15 pages because something like really icky happened with like a pregnant woman. And now that I have a kid, when stuff happens like that, I'm like, can I read this? I don't know. And that is Tender is the Flesh by Augustina Basterica. And I loved it. I loved it. Call me weird if I loved it. But, I loved it. Anyway, it is about, they live in a world, a postmodern apocalyptic-y world where animals have become toxic to eat for humans, and so cannibalism has become legalized. And so we're following this guy named Marcos who works at a local processing plant, so basically a human slaughterhouse. And his wife has left him, his father has dementia, and he's trying not to think too hard about how he makes a living, of course. And yeah, so it's an infectious virus that's made all animal meat poisonous to humans, and then governments initiated the transition, so eating human meat, special meat, is legal. But one day he's given a gift. He's basically given a human to have to eventually kill to eat. But if you end up doing anything like trying to have a relationship with the meat or things like that, then you could be arrested and killed and all that stuff. And then, of course, like, it's how is he going to deal with this human in his house that he has to eventually kill? Like, is he going to kill her? Is he going to start a relationship with her? Like, what's going to happen with that? And, yeah, this book, there were parts of this book where I was like, I can't read this right now. I'm getting a little sick to my stomach. I wouldn't read this while I'm eating food. And then the last page in this book and the last sentence in this book was like, book drop. Like, I was like, oh my God, you're reading this book the entire time. And you're like, okay, Marcos. Like, I get what you're going through. I see you. I feel you. And then you get to the last page and you're like, oh my gosh, you are a terrible person. Like, yeah, this book is not for everyone. If you don't want to read about a human slaughterhouse, then don't do it. But if you're like, yeah, that could be my jam, I'm a weird bitch, then you can do it and do it with me. Because yeah, this was something else, but I definitely loved it. And I would read it again, and I convinced my mom to buy it because she too was intrigued by the cover and the story. All right. I went into the hype this time. I came in clutch, read this book 2 days before the month was out, and that is Heartstopper Volume 1 by Alice Oseman. Have I ever read Alice Oseman book? No, but I also bought Loveless while I was there, which I'm going to be reading super soon, hopefully. But this is coming out on Netflix, so I figured this is the time to read it, right? It totally is. So, this is about, if you don't know by now, shy and soft-hearted Charlie Spring sits next to rugby player Nick Nelson in class one morning. A warm and intimate friendship follows, and that soon develops into something more for Charlie, who doesn't think he has a chance. But Nick is struggling with feelings of his own, and as the two grow closer and take on the ups and downs of high school, they come to understand the surprising and delightful ways in which love works. And like I said, it is a graphic novel, so like, look at all of these beautiful pictures. I read this in probably about 20 minutes. I loved it so much. It is so stinking cute. Charlie and Nick are adorable, and it ended on a cliffhanger, so I need books 2, 3, and 4 right now, especially when the Netflix show is coming out on April 22nd. You better believe I better be caught up by them. I cannot wait for this. This was just so cute. I understand why everybody is obsessed with it. I don't even care that it costs $15 for this graphic novel. It is well worth it. The pictures, like I said, are seriously, like, beautiful, and she wrote all of them, and drew all of them, and also wrote the story, and I just love it. I hope they're going to do a fantastic job with the adaptation, or else I will be very sad, because Nick and Charlie feel very special to me, and this is definitely a book I would recommend if you need a pick-me-up. So, I loved this. Then, for one of the books that I had to read on my TBR challenge was People We Meet on Vacation by Emily Henry, and I finally read it. And this also lived up to the hype that it had. Everybody was saying that this book was fantastic. A lot of people had this on their top books of 2021 last year. Like, everybody was, I saw this pop up everywhere. And it also was a 5-star. It was fantastic. So, this is about Poppy and Alex, and they're friends that have nothing really in common. They became friends in college, and every year since they became friends, they would take a vacation together. And they were just best friends, nothing more than that. And then one summer, something happens, and they don't say what happens, and they don't ever speak to each other again for at least, like, 2 years. And so then Poppy decides that she's going to reach back out to Alex and see if she can convince them to take one more vacation together so that she can fix what went wrong from 2 summers ago, and she only has a week to fix it all. And Poppy and Alex are so cute. I love Poppy's character. I also really love Alex's character. And just, like, I liked this book because it was a misunderstanding, like what happened to get them together. But I love when you're able to talk through misunderstandings. I hate when like misunderstandings happen and it's such a stupid one that like could have been fixed really easily. And instead, like, you know, just stupid stuff is happening that's like getting in the way of this. This book, like, that misunderstanding could also have easily been avoided. But I liked the resolution of how it all developed. And it was super cute. I loved getting to see all of the flashbacks to all of the vacations that they had so that you're able to see their relationship develop. And then you're able to finally see, like, what happened and be like, wow, you guys are stupid. You need to be together. And, yeah, Poppy and Alex are definitely a very cute couple that I will ship forever and ever. Yeah. And if you're like, what do you mean a cute couple? It's literally a romance book. Like, how many romance books do you know where they don't get together in the end? Like, if you think that's a spoiler, I'm sorry. Okay, anyway, read this. I loved it. It was great. I had such a good time reading it. Then let's go on to another romance that also lived up to the hype. And I am not going to lie, I didn't think it was going to be able to do it. I was seriously expecting it to like just, I don't know, be a 3 or a 4 star for me. Like I kind of even wanted it to be. I wanted to prove that this book was not as good as everybody is saying it is. But I could not lie and give it less than 5 stars. And that is The Love Hypothesis by Ali Hazelwood. This book is one of my favorite romances. It is adorable. It is so cute, so great. Just the right sense of steaminess, although the sex scene is a little cringe. If you haven't heard by now, the iconic, he could fit her entire boob in his mouth sort of deal. And wondering how realistic that is, even if you have a small boob. Like, is that pliable? I don't really know. Anyway, this is about Olive, who she just broke up with her boyfriend because he really wanted to date her best friend. And her best friend doesn't want to date him because obviously girl code. And so she's like, oh, I'm fine. I'm dating someone already. And she kisses the first guy that she sees in the hallway. Why? I don't know. But it's Adam Carlson, which is like a hotshot older professor that's like known for being this grumpy sunshine dude. And so they end up fake dating each other for mutual reasons, or for different reasons, but like reasons that will benefit each of them. And then of course the relationship progresses and like, is it real or was it all just a lie? And what I loved about this so much was him, because he was very nurturing and understanding and compassionate towards her when like he didn't need to be, and like all this stuff. And he is just like the perfect book boyfriend. He's what like every boyfriend should be like. Even every fake boyfriend should be like. He was fantastic. Their romance was so cute. Like there were some issues that came up in the middle that she was really struggling with. And he was just the best support for her. Like this book was so good. Oh my gosh. The ending was perfect. It was magical. I can't wait till her other books come out. She has 3 novellas, I believe, coming out. They might already be out by now. And then she has another book called Love on the Brain coming out soon. And I'm just here for it. Ali Hazelwood, you can take all my money because this book was so cute. And now we're moving on to my last 2 favorite books of this month. And I finally read the book that has been on my TBR since January and I almost didn't make it. But a reading vlog made me finally. And that is In My Dreams, I Hold a Knife by Ashley Winstead. I binged this in about a day and a half. Like, I kid you not. I sat down at the end of like a Thursday night after work and read for like 3 hours straight and finished this book. This book is exactly my kind of writing. Like, the way she writes is just one of those books where like you can just binge it and take it all in a day. And that's what I did. So this one is like one of those isolated room murders. So it's 10 years after graduation and Jessica Miller is returning to their 10-year reunion. And she was one of 7 in the East House 7, which is like this group of like 7 kids that just like are all different types of characters you wouldn't expect to be friends, like a football jock and the math geek. And then she's like this nerdy girl and this really shy girl and this popular girl and this mean girl and all this stuff. And one of them, Heather, ends up murdered in their college years. And so it's been 10 years since then, and a lot of them have separated because one of them was accused of being the murderer. And so they all get back together, and the brother has led them all there. Her brother, which wasn't in the East House 7, has led them back to the reunion to basically figure out who killed his sister for real. And this book was crazy. I did not know what was going to come at the end, and like the last few pages, you were like, oh my gosh, because like you found out what happened and the plot twist and everything. And then there was a plot twist in like the last 2 pages. And you're like, homegirl, you did not just do that to me. You just did not do that. You did not do that. Yeah, this was delightful. I loved it. I didn't love all of the characters, but I liked learning all of like the story about all of them and seeing the flashbacks, of course, to like back when they were in college. And then they even had a couple of chapters that came from like different perspectives of specific characters at like different parts when it was like really pivotal to know what they were thinking in that moment. The way she put this together was just fantastic. And I'm reading her other book, her romance, called Fool Me Once right now. And it is also delightful. I am so glad I read this finally. The only thing I'm sad about is that when my mom bought me this for a Christmas present, the spine was broken from Amazon. Like, look at that. That's terrible. And I did glue it, but I need to glue it more because it is breaking. And I might just buy a new copy so that I can have a good copy, because this is going to be a favorite that I'm going to want to hold on to. Fantastic. And then the last book that I loved, it was my best book of this month and probably one of my best books of the year. Right now, it is my best book of the year because I've been doing like that bracket every month. And I don't have it right now because my mom is actually borrowing it and reading it as we speak. So I'll pop it up here. Is The Push by Ashley Audrain. I was a little scared going into that book because it apparently touches on a lot of issues with motherhood and basically your worst fears about being a mother. And there were a little bit parts at times where I was like, oh, that's actually really scary, like, and I have thought about that before, but I loved this book. So it is a thriller. It's about a girl named Blythe, a woman named Blythe, who she basically has a child, and she didn't want a child because of past trauma from, like, her childhood. And her daughter is Violet, and she just can't seem to bond with her in the way that she thought that you would as a mother. And she doesn't know if it's something wrong with her, something wrong with her daughter, whatever. And then she has her second child. I can't remember his name right now. And she finally feels what it's like to be a mother. Like, this is the love that she's been missing. And then something tragic happens. They don't say what happens. And she basically just has to deal with the aftermath of that. And this book, like, I loved getting to hear her perspective and, like, seeing it all from, like, an outside lens. And just, like, everything that happened in this book, I don't know how to explain it. It was, like, first it had, like, 2 to 3 page chapters, which means I was flying through this book. Second, it was just, like, I don't know. I just loved it. Every time I read, I was just like, oh, my gosh, I so understand your pain. And then you just keep going and going and going. And then you get to the end, and I'm like, I will say it very much reminded me of The Bad Seed, if you've ever watched that movie, or The Good Son. They're basically the same movie, but The Bad Seed is from, like, the 30s, and it's fantastic. I just watched it with my mom 2 weeks ago. Yeah, it was very resembling of, like, The Bad Seed in that type of situation, but it was phenomenal. Like, if you want to read it, if you're okay with reading a book like that, go read it. I'm serious. It was so good. Like, I will probably reread it again. It was that good. I just loved it. Like, I don't know. There was just something about it that I just loved. It was magical. So those are all of the books that I read in March. And there were a couple that I was supposed to read that I didn't get to, like Neon Gods by Katie Roberts. I promise I will read that eventually. Know My Name by Chanel Miller, which has made its way back onto this list. Fool Me Once by Ashley Winstead, which I am currently reading and hope to be finished with by April 5th on its publication date so that I can announce to everyone that they should read it, because I did get an ARC copy of it. A Little Life by Hanya Yanagihara. I'm still going to read that, but that's like an 800-page book, fam. It just didn't happen, okay? Okay. Pet Sematary by Stephen King. That is also on the TBR again, so don't you worry. I'm going to be reading that this time. And I feel like there was 1 or 2 more, but I can't remember right now. So we're just gonna go with this. Also, this is just staring at me in my table, right at me. This is my edition of Gallant that I got for a Luma crate. And, like, look at that. Look at that beautifulness. Like, I'm just obsessed. Honestly, this spine, it's just beautiful. Anyway, this has nothing to do with the series. This is a book that I'm probably going to read in March, or in April, actually. So I'm excited for that. But that is my March wrap up. I hope that you read some really awesome books in March. I would love to know the best book that you read in March down in the comments below. Like I said, this was a fantastic reading month for me. I just cannot wait to see what April holds. Like, it was great. So yeah, but that's all I'm going to say in this video. I will see you guys very soon with a quarterly wrap up where we discuss, like, the best books that I read between January to March and, like, some reading stats and whatnot. And then I have some other cool videos following along the pike. So if you're interested in that, stay tuned, subscribe, all the things. But I'll see you guys in a later video. Bye!